So it's been 9 months since my last video here on YouTube, nearly 9 months, and I feel a little awkward coming back, if I'm completely honest, because I kind of left with no explanation, and I had a lot of messages after in the last 9 months or so asking me like, oh, what's happened to you, like where have you gone, like we miss you, like when's your next video coming out? And so I thought I would make this video to kind of address a lot of these questions of like where I've gone, and also to talk a little bit about where I'm at now and some life lessons I've learned along the way. I guess I'd also just like to address one of the fears I have coming back to YouTube just right off the bat, because it's something that I've been worrying about a little bit, which is that I don't really know if anybody is still going to be watching my videos, because it's been like 9 months and part of me wonders like, does anyone still remember me on YouTube? But then I reminded myself that at the start of my YouTube journey, nobody was watching my videos and I still made videos anyway. And in the same way, even if nobody is watching these videos now, that's also okay, because I guess I'm approaching this as almost beginning again for my YouTube channel. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you will probably know that I personally love meditation as the backbone of my daily routine and a way to really work on my mind actively. And one of the concepts in meditation is that at any moment you can just decide to begin again. This is something so I often use the Waking Up app by Sam Harris, and he'll often talk about this and just choosing to begin again as if you were a beginner approaching this with fresh eyes, a fresh mindset. And so that's how I'm hoping to come back to YouTube. So now I think to rewind a little bit to where I've been and why I quit. I guess quit is a strong word, because I never really decided to quit actively. It was just I kind of disappeared for a little while. Let me just adjust my chair a bit. There we go, that's a better height. I'm still getting used to this whole filming thing again. So my last video that I published was back in February of 2024, which was a little while ago. And the reason for that was that behind the scenes, for the last probably 6 months prior to that, there was a slow decline in how much I was actually enjoying making videos. Looking back and doing a bit of a post-mortem on it, I can see a couple of reasons why this was the case. The first reason was that I was starting to approach my YouTube channel more as a revenue stream rather than as something where I genuinely share stuff that I'm interested in. And that meant, like it does for most creators, starting to take sponsorships. And so in the previous August, I had made the decision to start taking on sponsorships. I signed with an agent. I decided to actively take on more sponsors and turn this more into an actual thing that I was doing. What I hadn't really anticipated was how taking on sponsorships changes your relationship to the content itself. I couldn't make final revisions to the edit last minute because there would be a deadline that the sponsor would expect it to be posted by, because obviously from the sponsor's point of view, this is a marketing channel for them. This is how they're generating leads for their business, this is how they're getting new customers in, and so they want to have an idea of when this is actually going to happen. And I totally get that. I guess it's just from the creator's perspective, it can be difficult to balance the needs of the sponsor with the creative needs of actually creating really good content that you feel excited about and proud of, and that actually has a real benefit to the audience, the person watching it, you. So for a long time I had been increasingly struggling with the pressure for deadlines from sponsors, them wanting to have very strict control over exactly what is said in their sponsored integration, wanting to have revisions on the integration or give you exact wording for what they want you to say, how they want you to say it. And on top of this, they also give you feedback on certain things like your view counts. And so for my channel at the time, my views were a little bit variable because it depends on the topic, and some videos I just want to create a chill, chatty video talking about what's in my bag as a doctor, or like something quite random. But unfortunately for the sponsor, from the sponsor's point of view, they want to see very regular view counts so that they know what kind of view counts and exposure they'll be getting through sponsoring one of your videos. And so this was fed back to me via my agent, and they were on my side here. They were trying to help me to get higher rates or get better deals or more interest from sponsors. And so what they advised me was to aim for at least 100,000 views on every single video. This unfortunately creates this pressure mentally where it's like, oh, I kind of want to make this random video about my experiences doing a meditation retreat and 10 days of silent meditation. But oh, that kind of video idea, I'm not sure, it's a bit of a risk. It's like a bit different. People might not be interested in it from my audience, which is totally fine. And I'm not expecting everybody to be interested in that. But then that's an issue, because then that video, if I create it and publish it, is likely to have a much lower view count than the rest of my more standard videos. And so then it almost restricts your creative freedom in a way, because it disincentivized me from creating experimental content that I actually really enjoyed. And interestingly, if you look at the history of my channel, I haven't made a huge number of videos, but the videos I have made, there are a couple that stand out, which were actually experimental videos that weren't in my standard niche at the time, but I decided to do them anyway because I was passionate about it, and they ended up going relatively viral for my channel. For example, the video where I talked about my reflections on my first 6 months working as a doctor and what that was like. And so in a way, feeling this pressure to avoid experimental content on my channel and avoid being actually creative and following my passion and my voice as I wanted to, really sucked the joy out of creating in a way that I hadn't anticipated. So for example, if I did a sponsorship where I posted the video and then we were talking about doing a second round of sponsorships or like a renewal, then the brand would sometimes say, oh, we'd actually want to see at least 250,000 views on this video before considering sponsoring you again at the same rate. And I'm like, wait, but that's like an outsized, like highly performing video for my channel. Like that's almost an unreasonable expectation to set. And so almost correlating how I feel about my channel with the number of views that each video is getting was very, very unhelpful. And so then what I moved on to next was I decided to take a total break from sponsors. And I had a bit of a think, and I was like, okay, how can I actually monetize? How can I monetize as a creator if I'm not taking on sponsorships or taking a break from sponsorships? What I landed on was creating my own product, creating a course. And I thought, okay, what do people actively always ask me for? And I was like, okay, they always ask me for more tips on how to self-study Mandarin, so I'll create a course about that. And so then I had been working on this on and off for a couple of months while I was still making YouTube videos, but I found that because I had my focus split between video making and course creation, and video making was the thing that I already know how to do and is something in my comfort zone. I have been making videos. I have already made a bunch of videos. I know how to do it. Whereas a course is like a brand new thing, and I don't know how to really do it. It's kind of new territory for me. So then I was always defaulting to the option that felt comfortable, which was spending time making more YouTube videos. When actually what I needed to do was to push myself out of my comfort zone and do the course. And so then I made the decision at that point, okay, winding down sponsorships. Secondly, I'm going to focus on doing this course and getting us done and shipping it. And when I had actually focused on the course, I actually did get it done, and I poured in so much work into it. And I'm naturally a bit of a perfectionist, so I just spent way longer than I expected working on this course and making it as good as possible, because I just didn't want to ship it without it feeling really good. But through this I learned that there is value in sometimes doing things not in parallel, but actually in series, one after each other, because that allows you to have a real focus, and focus is what can really drive depth and serious progress on something. So if there's something that you're struggling with making progress on, or you're always procrastinating on, maybe try making it your focus just for a week, maybe just a week or even a few days. It's like, okay, this is my number one thing, rather than juggling it with everything else that is going on, because it really worked. Then the next thing came up in my life. Next stage of the life update is I got married. I got married in August, and there was a lot of wedding planning, like a huge amount. I think I underestimated wedding planning before I actually tried it myself, because people would always be like, oh, like there's so much work to plan a wedding, like, oh, they're starting planning their wedding like 3 years in advance. And I'm like, really? How hard can this really be? My now husband was also like, yeah, how hard can it be? Like, Apple launched the first iPhone in 4 months. Surely we can plan a wedding in 6 months. And so we started wedding planning. But by we started wedding planning, it was mostly I started wedding planning. He was very helpful whenever asked, but he didn't really have a strong preference on most things, and I would have more of a preference on things like the color palette or what kind of food we have. I would have much more of a preference than he did, and so then it's almost like whatever I preferred he was happy with. And so then it ended up being just me picking everything. We got a wedding planner, we got all the suppliers, but there was just actually so much to coordinate that I hadn't, and so many little micro decisions, like the caterers asking me, oh, how do you want the napkins to be folded? And then they would like spread out a whole table full of like different napkin textures and colors and sizes and different ways that they can fold them, and then be looking at me blinking expectantly waiting for my answer on which one I preferred. and so obviously, like, me having a preference about things and having an opinion on aesthetics, I would take the time to really think about this. So this ended up taking up a lot more of my life than I was anticipating, in a relatively condensed time period as well, because we were planning it in essentially 6 months. And what I noticed actually during this season of life, so it was really amping up in probably like April, May, June, July, like the final, maybe more like the last 3 months, so like May, June, July, was that wedding planning was taking over my life a little bit. And I kept finding myself feeling guilty and almost feeling bad about myself because I wasn't getting that much stuff done. Like when I'd make my daily to-do list in the morning or like do my weekly review, I'm like, wait, but like, why am I not getting all of the things that I wanted to do done actually done? And I kept going through the cycle of like being a bit down about it, not super happy with how I was doing, until I had this mental switch that wedding planning isn't just like a little like lightweight activity on the side. It's actually a project. And as soon as hang on, about to sneeze. Excuse me, I think it was too fluffy. And as soon as I'd made this mental switch that, oh, like wedding planning is just like a little like side thing, to wedding planning is one of the major projects in my life, that's when I realized, okay, actually this thing is actually taking up quite a lot of time. I'm having to do visits to like the caterers, look at different flowers, decide on like designing. So I personally designed the menus and the invitations and got those printed and everything. And so all of this stuff adds up. And one thing that my sister was saying to me, because we had started to do this thing where we would do little accountability check-ins for each of our goals and little like life reviews for each other, which I think is a great idea, by the way. If there's any like friends that you have or your partner and you want to help each other to make better progress in life towards any of your goals, this is actually a really powerful way to make progress, help your friend or partner or whoever it is make progress as well, and also get closer. So I'd highly recommend trying it. Anyway, so we were doing this like review of like life and like, oh, like what are our main goals, like resetting and like realigning on what the key goals are. And when the question came to, oh, like what are my goals, I initially said like, oh yeah, like I'm not sure, maybe something to do with like YouTube and like actually posting some videos. But then she raised a good point, which is that if all goes well, you only get married once in your life. And so in a way, this wedding is a once in a lifetime event. And yes, that doesn't mean that it needs to be perfect in every single way, but at least making it feel like a special event and giving it the due diligence and due love and attention and energy that it needs for you to look back and be like, I'm glad that we did it like that. I feel content and at peace and joyful with the memories of our wedding day. That's actually a valuable thing. And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a really good point. And so from that point, one of my main goals for the last like 3 months before the wedding was to plan a beautiful wedding. And so that was one of my goals. And as soon as that was there, it just clicked that I don't need to feel guilty that wedding planning is, quote, taking over my life, which is a bit of a victim mentality anyway. It's like I am choosing to place it at a higher importance and a higher priority in my life because it is important to me. I also realized that there's almost always a perfectly good reason for why we aren't getting all the things on our to-do list checked off each day or week or month. Whether that's because we have been too ambitious or maybe optimistic with how much stuff we can do, or whether there is something else that has been draining us and sapping our energy and attention. I have come to see this as an invitation for self-compassion, because the reason why we're not getting all the things done or like not being productive enough is probably not because we're bad or like we're no good at getting stuff done, but actually because there's all this other stuff going on. And so then to almost view ourselves almost as if we were our friend. If you were talking to your friend or like a loved one and they were feeling like, oh, I'm not getting stuff done, you probably won't immediately judge them as like, ugh, that's kind of useless, isn't it? You'd probably think, oh, like, you've probably had a lot going on, like, can we break this down? Or like, how can we think about this in another way? Or where are your priorities right now? And like, are you spending your time in alignment with them? Maybe you need more rest time. Maybe you need to dedicate more time to your health, and maybe actually just give yourself some grace and not put too much pressure on yourself to always be performing at 100%. Instead, just asking yourself to perform at 75%. And sometimes you'll give a bit more, and maybe you'll give 80 or 90%. And sometimes you'll give a bit less when your body needs more rest or when other things are going on and taking your attention away from this. But it's actually, everything's okay. And you can be kind to yourself. So this is something that I've been working on actively for a long time now. And it feels like a journey that keeps going for a while, getting better. And sometimes it's about recognizing that we can only do our best, most creative, most inspired, most joyful work and enjoy what we're doing when we are well rested and when we are balancing everything else in our lives. Something that I learned majorly from the YouTube spiral that I went into with not enjoying YouTube videos is that enjoyment is in fact efficiency. And this was really illuminated for me during a creator mastermind retreat in May, where one of the guys there, Joe Hudson, he has a YouTube channel, I'll link it below, was saying that, yeah, actually, like when we're enjoying stuff, we're just more efficient at it and we just do it better. And so instead of asking like, oh, how can I be more productive or get more done or check on my to-do list, maybe instead inviting yourself to ask the question, how can I enjoy this just 5% more? And what impact will that make on how it's going? And if I'd asked myself that question with respect to making YouTube videos a bit earlier on in the process, maybe I wouldn't have taken such a big break. Maybe I would have in fact prioritized ways to enjoy it. And so coming back to YouTube, I am now trying to approach it with this spirit of how can I find enjoyment in every single part of the process. Maybe there are certain parts of the process that just aren't really ever super fun, but that's okay. because I can still try to enjoy it just a tiny bit more, and that's a win in my book. So then we had our wedding. It was a gorgeous day, like one of the happiest days of my life, just having all of our loved ones there, with everybody having the dinner and dancing and eating cake together. It was maybe the best day of my life. I remember just grinning from ear to ear on the dance floor, looking at all my friends and family and feeling so surrounded by love and connection. So all the wedding planning paid off in the end. And after that we went on our honeymoon in Costa Rica, and then also went to Burning Man, which was a whole other story. It was a crazy experience, and an insane testament to the power of human creativity and what we can build when we put our minds together and our intellect together. But then came the next challenge, because my plan all along had been, okay, for now wedding planning is my top thing. Once the wedding's over and then we've done our honeymoon and started traveling again, YouTube's going to be my number one. But actually I found out that after like a couple of weeks after like the honeymoon and like traveling together, I found out that I was pregnant. So this is the next big life update. Ali, my husband, and I, like, we knew that from very early on that we both wanted kids, and we were aligned on wanting kids soon after marriage. I think maybe there was part of me that wasn't truly mentally prepared, despite kind of agreeing to this or like thinking that I was, because I think there was part of me that was thinking like, oh, like most people take like a while to get pregnant, like maybe like up to a year, like 6 months to a year. That imagined timeline didn't happen, and instead I was pregnant like straight away. And along with that came all of the early pregnancy symptoms. So I was hit with feeling tired all the time, feeling sick most days, not really having much appetite, throwing up, the toilet becoming one of the sites that is burned into my brain wherever we were, like, because we were staying in hotels often at that time, so various hotel toilets or like toilets in restaurants where I would run to the bathroom to throw up, and losing weight during my first few weeks of pregnancy because of this. And once again I was faced with the spiritual challenge of trying to understand what my worth and value are when I do not have any clear, obvious roots of traditional productivity in terms of career or economic output or progress. Because suddenly I was in a position where I felt ill like all the time. I was either tired, or I was nauseous, or I was vomiting, or I was trying to eat and keep something down, or I was sleeping. I think that life presents us with challenges in a series which we can handle them, because I truly believe that life will only present you with a challenge that you are strong enough and ready enough to rise to. And when the universe presents you with that challenge, it's there to help you grow. And I think this challenge of dealing with feeling guilty around not being able to do anything for 2 months brought up all these questions around, what is my intrinsic value? If I intended to get back into making YouTube videos. I intended to get back to working on improving and iterating on the second version of my course to make it even better and to make it more suitable for really helping students to learn Mandarin. I was intending on doing all of these things, but suddenly the universe had other plans, and our baby was on its way. And I was judging myself for not being able to follow my plan and have control of the situation in some way. Over the last few months, I have realized that the role of motherhood is almost criminally devalued in our current society. And in a way, this mindset has soaked into me, where almost this narrative of like, oh, you should have your career sorted, you should like go study, be super academic, get your career sorted, work super hard, and then maybe later on think about kids. But like, don't have kids too early because they're gonna like make you not able to fulfill your potential or to truly be a useful member of society. Sure, maybe people aren't exactly saying that, but that was almost the message that I had internalized. But over the last few months, I have really had to squarely look at this assumption in the face and question it, because suddenly I find myself in the position where my body is actively creating a new human being, and a new human life. And at times when I would feel useless, or like, oh, like all I'm doing is laying in bed, like feeling ill, or like exhausted, or like needing more sleep than usual, and feeling like a burden on the people around me. So on my husband Ali, or like on my parents. So my mum came to help look after me because I was struggling so much. And so instead of feeling useless, I would also sometimes talk to my mum or talk to Ali and have this, and they would say something like, oh, but you're doing the most important job of all. You're literally like building and creating and giving life to the next generation of human beings. What is possibly more important to the progression of humanity than ensuring that there is the next generation of kind, smart, healthy, happy individuals that can continue to carry on what we've been doing so far? And if we devalue this and sort of see mothers as like, oh, like she's just a mum, or she's just a stay-at-home mum, or like see the role of a mother as like, oh, it's so easy to be a mother, like all you do is just like be pregnant for a while and like squeeze out a few kids. If we devalue this role, and then people don't want to do it anymore, they don't necessarily value it in the same way as they maybe could, then what are we left with? We're left with a society that begins to hollow out. And instead, actually, I have gained a massive amount of respect for people who are mums, and all of the parents as well, not just mums but also dads that have gone before us and poured their love and their resources and their attention into nourishing and raising the next generation. It's inherently a selfless act, which I think is part of why maybe it's devalued, because it's not about personal progression, it's about the progression of the family and the unit and then the child, the next generation. It's not about necessarily like pouring into your own cup, it's about trying to fill up a new cup and create a new cup that can then fill other people's from there on. So I'm still trying to figure out how I'm thinking about this, but I'm kind of realizing through this process that firstly, being a mum is hard. Being pregnant is hard, or at least can be hard, because it's different for every woman. It's this questioning of like, okay, what is actually like valuable, and how to view ourselves as valuable or useful or purposeful. At least maybe in the circles that I was swimming in, the bubbles that I was in, the idea of like motherhood and having kids was not seen as something aspirational. It was seen as something like very average, or it was seen as something that was for later down the line once you had achieved all your dreams and fulfilled your potential already. It wasn't seen as something to dream about and to think, that is what I want to do really well. And I have this like curiosity around why that is, and I'm still figuring it out. And I'd actually really appreciate hearing you guys' thoughts down below in the comments, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, around this like new question that has been posed to me. And I've also been learning to appreciate the power of my body to literally create new life, which is kind of amazing, because when we went to some of our ultrasound scans, the baby is literally moving around. You can see this being that is growing somewhere in here. And it's actually amazing, because often I think it's easy for us to not feel like we're part of nature or part of the wonder and power of it. But we really are. We are part of nature, and we have some of that creation force within us. Every single one of us, both men and women. But especially as a woman, this is something that feels very direct in terms of the ability to carry children. It's not what makes a woman, but it is almost a sort of potential part of being a woman, is this creation potential that we have. And I feel like for a lot of my life I haven't honoured that, or I haven't really seen that in me, because I've just felt like, oh, I'm just me. I'm just going to med school and like doing my thing, and oh, now I'm working as a doctor, like, oh, like doing my academics, and sometimes even denying the impact that natural cycles have on my experience of life. And so this question of purpose I will come back to in a second when I talk about why I'm back on YouTube. But just to wrap up the life update, so found out that her little one is on the way, and then we decided, because we're meant to be going on extended travels for a couple of months, and figure out, oh, where do we want to live in the world? Like, it doesn't have to be London, we could try Asia, we could try like America, we could try somewhere. But then with this news we thought, okay, we need to have a solid base, somewhere that we can set up a bit of a nest, a bit of a home, and have some level of stability in terms of seeing a doctor that I know and feeling comfortable with them, knowing the hospital and the system where the baby will be born. So we decided to move to Hong Kong. And so that's the next big life update. I don't know how many life updates there have been so far, maybe 3. Part of the reason why is because in London, I really don't like the weather. Anytime from probably October until March, it's almost perpetually grey and drizzling. The sun at some point rises at like basically 9 a.m. and sets at like 4 p.m. And I find this can often really impact on my mood and outlook on life. And so I was like, okay, well, what if we just tried living somewhere else? What if we, while we're young, we can try moving somewhere warm and sunny? And so then we were thinking, where's warm and sunny? There's some places in the US, but the US, we're not quite sure necessarily how to feel about the politics and the guns and the taxes. So we're like, we could do that, but it's always an option down the line. There's a really cool community of people there, love the people there. It's just, do we want to enter that system? Not sure. We thought about Europe for a bit, but there weren't too many good options there. And so then we're thinking, okay, maybe Asia could be a good adventure. While we're there, we can use it as a bit of a jumping off point to visit other places in Asia, Japan, Korea, Thailand, Southeast Asia, like all the things. And so the 3 top contenders initially were Hong Kong, Singapore, and Kuala Lumpur. According to some friends of ours who have been to all 3 of those, they thought that we would most like Hong Kong and most gel with it. So we went with it, and we've got a flat here, dealt with some teething issues moving in, where basically almost all of the kitchen appliances were broken because they're all more than 20 years old and no one had lived in the flat for over 6 months before we moved in, and I guess they didn't think to check that the things were still working, and so we basically didn't have a working kitchen for the first month while they were replacing most of the things in there. So that was an interesting experience. But getting everything set up, starting the new life in Hong Kong, finding a new yoga studio I love, setting up a new studio. Oh my god, I've got all these plants already. I love it. And so that's pretty much the life update of where I've been for the last 9 months, I guess. So now to answer the question of why I'm back and what I'm doing here back on YouTube and what's happening now. Well, I'm back because of this thing I touched on about purpose, which is, okay, what is the purpose of my life or any of our lives? And one of the big reflections I've had over in the last year is that purpose from self-progress and self-development can only go so far before it starts to feel shallow. Because up until this point in my life, I have been mostly focusing on working on developing myself, working on my career, working on my education, but not really using my cup to fill anyone else's, really, until I started working as a doctor and until I started making YouTube videos. And I think I hadn't realized or hadn't really connected to this sense of purpose in YouTube very deeply for a long time, until I took a break, really. Because when I took a break, there were all these messages that I suddenly started getting over like the last several months of like, oh, like, where are you? Like, I miss seeing your videos. And there was one in particular that actually made me tear up when I read it. And it was from someone called Amanda, who sent me a DM on Instagram replying to one of my random Instagram stories. If you're interested to follow more about my daily life, feel free to follow me over on Instagram. I kind of post little updates and stories there. Anyway, she said this: I miss your YouTube videos. I know life probably got in the way, but know that you've touched some lives, mine included, and really helped some people. And so many other messages of people saying, please keep posting. Are you planning on making more videos? Please make a video about this and that. Your videos inspire me. You're my inspiration. All of this kind of thing, which I didn't really realize. And receiving all these messages from people reminded me that actually sharing my experiences and things I'm thinking about and tips and tricks on YouTube actually does have an impact on people, and it does help others. And I think what I'm really looking for in terms of a purpose is, how can I be of service to the world? What are the things that I am able to do that actually serve others? And if the sphere of service only extends to a handful of people, that's still enough for it to feel meaningful. And I guess it comes back to this question of what makes a full life? What is the meaning of life? And for me, the meaning of life is what we choose for it to be. And I have decided to choose for my life to be a life of service, whether that is to the people immediately around me, my friends and family, whether that is to you, my dear viewers on YouTube, or whether it's to myself or my baby or other I don't know, what else could it be to? And so I'm thinking of service in almost like almost rings, right? Concentric rings. In the very middle, there is the self. There's me. Because without filling up your own cup first, you can't possibly fill other people's cups. So for the first a few decades of my life, I've been focusing on building myself up, and rightly so, because only from that position can I actually pour into other people's cups. The next ring out from there is service to immediate family or friends, people that I actually know. And so that includes to potential future kids, to my husband, to my family, to my friends, or to you, my friend on YouTube watching these videos. And so that's why I'm back on YouTube, because I have realized that there is something here which is really special. And there are people out there who miss my videos when I'm not making them, and who have been helped by my video in some small way. And so if that's you watching this, then thank you for watching, and thank you for messaging if any of my videos have ever helped you, because I read all of your messages. And even though I might not have time to reply to them all, know that sending a message saying that a video has resonated with you or has been helpful for you, it gives me motivation to keep going with making these kinds of rambly videos on YouTube. In terms of where the channel is going from here, I actually filmed 2 or 3 videos during my break, during my hiatus, which I got edited. They're just classic old style videos before the wedding that I actually didn't post because I never made a thumbnail and title. So I'm going to post those. But then after that, I'm going to try to rediscover the joy of making videos like I did in the early days, and also try to make videos that are helpful. In the spirit of that, I would love to know if you could leave me a comment down below. What is something that you are struggling with at the moment? What's something that I could answer in a video? And I might be leaning more towards chatty style videos, a bit like this, where I just share some of my thoughts, almost in an attempt to begin again. Some of my videos on YouTube over time have become more and more polished, to the point where you can't really see me as a person anymore, or it almost feels like it's pure information rather than me connecting to you heart to heart. And so I want to return to being able to just make videos that are a bit experimental, where I'm just sharing some of my thoughts and feelings, sharing how things are going, and in the hope that it is helping at least one person watching out there. I'm usually the kind of person that likes to do things either fully or not at all, but this all or nothing approach isn't actually helpful at the moment, because I think there's a middle way here. A middle way where I can create joyful content that is still helpful. And so rather than trying to optimize the hell out of everything and optimize everything, I'm going to try to walk the middle way. So if that sounds like the kind of thing you might be interested in, then hopefully I will see you in one of my next videos. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and as always, remember that the journey is the destination. Bye! I've actually missed filming, you know. When I can do stuff like this. Okay, right. I'm actually recording now. I guess we shall begin. Well, I guess we could begin at the beginning, which is quite a good place to begin. Let's just get started.